So you've started to get the ball rolling with getting your new business going, but you're coming across all of this talk about claiming expenses and need some advice on what all of this means and how business expenses help you pay less tax. Now, in our last installment of Take the Leap, registering as self-employed, we gave you an overview of what a limited company is and what the benefits are of starting one. So if you've decided to continue as a sole trader, we'd suggest checking out the other video we've uploaded alongside this one, which is entitled, "What Expenses Can I Claim as a Sole Trader?" If you've decided a limited company is the right structure for your business, this video will explain what sort of things you can claim expenses for and how to do it. You might actually be surprised to discover some of the ways your business can save money. Before we start, a quick reminder to subscribe to our channel and turn on those notifications in order to make sure that you always stay in the know as a self-employed worker. Let's take the leap and find out more about what expenses you can claim as a limited company director. Hi, and welcome to this edition of Take the Leap, where we'll be giving you an easy to understand explanation of what business expenses you can claim for when you operate a limited company. Now, if you are pushed for time and would rather download a PDF guide to read later, then we've got our up-to-date jargon-free limited company expenses guide, and we've put a link in the description of the video below for you. Now, let's start right at the beginning. The rules around business expenses are fairly simple, though sometimes the devil can be in the detail. The golden rule is that for something to qualify as a business expense, it needs to be something that your business spends money on that is wholly and exclusively for business purposes. Now, being savvy with your business expenses is a large part of running a successful business, big or small. By documenting and claiming for every allowable expense, you're making sure that you aren't paying more tax than you're supposed to. In this video, we'll be running down some of the main types of HMRC approved business expenses that you can claim as a limited company in order to be more tax efficient. We pride ourselves on explaining things without jargon, so here's a really quick and simple explanation of how it all works. When you successfully claim for business expenses, you reduce the amount of profit on which your limited company pays corporation tax. So the bottom line is, more allowable expenses mean less taxable profits and less tax for your business to pay. As you always want to keep on HMRC's good side, you need to make sure you only claim for expenses that are on HMRC's approved list. To do this, you need to ensure you're keeping accurate records of your outgoings. For example, if you're claiming business mileage, it's really vital to keep a mileage log that shows where you went and when you went there, just in case HMRC want to inspect your records. Bear in mind that you're legally bound to keep these records for at least 6 years. Simply stuffing receipts into an old shoebox really isn't going to cut it these days, especially as in modern times more and more tax reporting needs to be produced digitally. You should really look into some online accounting software to help you keep your bookkeeping in good order. Do remember, our crunch-free software, which as the name suggests is completely free, lets you keep track of all of your expenses, invoices and bank transactions. It also integrates with our Snap Expenses app to make uploading expenses as simple as snapping a photo of the receipt. And our TripCatcher mileage app really simplifies recording and uploading any business mileage that you want to claim for. Click the link to try it out for yourself. So when it comes to buying things for your business, you can either pay your company's expenses directly from the company business bank account or company credit card, or if you do pay for something personally, you can actually claim it back from your business as a reimbursed expense. It's important to remember to keep an accurate record each time you reimburse yourself from the company funds. We usually recommend that you pay for expenses on a card rather than in cash, so that you do have an extra record of that transaction. If you run a small business and have employees, your employees can also claim expenses. So it's good practice to have a company expense form and policies in place. For example, limits on how much employees are allowed to spend and in what situations, and what authorization they need to have their expenses approved. Don't forget to collect and file all the expense claims at the end of each month to keep on top of things and make sure that you maintain a healthy cash flow. It's also essential to stress that your employees must keep all receipts to be able to reclaim any of their expenses. We've talked a bit about allowable business expenses, but what exactly does HMRC consider allowable? The first example of this is simply paying yourself a salary from the company. Salaries for directors and any other employees are deemed an allowable business expense. So the salaries reduce the company profits, meaning the company pays less in corporation tax. Now, we're not going to go into detail here about how much to pay yourself as a tax-efficient salary, but we will just mention that there may be employment and personal taxes to pay on any director salary that you take. Also, that unlike a salary, any dividends you take from the business are not an allowable expense, and these can only be taken from company profits after corporation tax. For more information about this, check out our video on dividends instead. Next, let's talk about one of the most common things people claim for: business travel. You can claim for business travel as long as it's not part of your regular commute. So you can't claim for travelling to your own office or place of work. But if you do need to travel to meet a client or to a temporary workplace, then you're able to claim the cost as a business expense. The costs could be bus, train, or flight tickets, or the costs of driving in your own vehicle. With regards to travel, you can claim allowable business expenses for vehicle insurance, repairs and servicing, fuel, parking, hire charges, vehicle license fees, breakdown cover, train, bus, air and taxi fares, hotel rooms, and meals on overnight business trips. You can't claim for non-business driving or travel costs, fines, and travel between home and your regular place of work. If you've used your personal car or van to get to a temporary place of work and paid for the fuel personally, you're entitled to get this back from your company. The rules around what is classed as a permanent or temporary workplace can get a little complicated, so we'll explain this a little. Now, a permanent workplace is defined as somewhere you attend regularly, which forms a base to work from, or where you must attend to perform certain duties. For example, you work in the same office 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. However, HMRC will also look for patterns in your travel. So for example, if your work regularly involves a meeting at a specific office every Monday afternoon, this could be a pattern of travel and means that this mileage can't be claimed. To be considered a valid business trip, the journey must be from one workplace to another for the purpose of work. Your workplace will only be considered temporary if either the period you work there is less than 24 months or you work there for less than 40% of your usual working hours. There are set rates that HMRC allows you to claim for mileage, depending on the type of travel. One eco-friendly thing to point out is that as a limited company director, you can even claim business mileage for journeys made by bike. To ensure our video is always up to date, the specific mileage amounts and rates can be found in the description section of this video. You can claim expenses for accommodation costs when you travel to a temporary workspace or location for business-related purposes, or stay overnight, providing that the expense isn't considered unreasonable or excessive. Of course, if your client pays for the expense, then you can't claim for it through your limited company as well. HMRC will likely question any claims for expensive hotels or apartments that have more than one bedroom. So the cheeky ones among you can put those ideas of claiming for room service at the Ritz to bed right now. Unfortunately, you can't have friends or family staying with you either. Another frequently asked question we get is, can I claim for my lunch? Well, sometimes yes. You can claim for subsistence, provided you're working at a temporary workplace. A temporary workplace is a base of limited duration or temporary purpose. An example of this is when you work from different sites but for the same employer, or if you usually work from home but spend one day working at a client's premises. Of course, make sure you keep these receipts, as otherwise you won't be able to claim. Now let's move on to perhaps the other most common thing people claim expenses for, and that's equipment for your limited company. These are sometimes referred to as fixed assets. Although these don't reduce your profits in the company, you do get another type of tax relief, and this is called capital allowances, and it does reduce your company's tax bill. The cost of anything that's necessary and essential for your duties as a director will receive tax relief. So this covers software, hardware, stationery, and some other items of that nature. Now, you may also claim reasonable relief towards the cost of equipping or furnishing an office. For example, chairs, desks, bookcases, and so on. One really important point about fixed assets such as this is that when you sell or dispose of them, you must report it in your company's accounts. Let's take a look at some other expenses that we often get questions about. There are important distinctions when claiming for work clothes. Unfortunately, HMRC will not allow you to claim for suits or regular clothing because this would be classed as duality of purpose, which essentially means that you can wear them both at work but also at your own leisure. However, HMRC does allow you to claim for items of clothing with your business logo on it, like a company hoodie or jacket, safety gear, and also uniforms that are specific to certain professions, such as nurses. So, if this applies to you, make sure your business does claim for it. It's likely you'll be using a mobile phone, landline, and broadband as a limited company. If your landline phone contract is only for business use, this is an allowable company expense, and you won't be taxed personally. Similarly, for mobile phones, provided the contract is between the company and the mobile phone provider, the company can claim all costs as an allowable expense. If you make a claim for business-only calls made on your personal mobile or landline phone bill, this is also an allowable expense, provided that you can prove that it was a business call. Although these days with all-inclusive minutes and text packages, it can be really hard to actually prove this. So really, your business phone should be in the name of your business. Now, if you're VAT registered, you could also reclaim the VAT on the call, but you won't be able to reclaim any part of the line rental, as you'd be charged for this regardless. If you have no broadband contract at home and need internet access to carry out your business, the costs can be reclaimed from your company. If you do start to carry out some of your work from home using your residential broadband, then you cannot make a claim if the broadband was already in place, unless you can prove that the costs are split between business and personal by, for example, having two separate broadband lines. It's debatable whether that's worth the hassle. Working through a limited company means that if you work from home, you can actually claim a weekly amount. Now, the other good news is that HMRC doesn't believe this to be a benefit in kind, which means you won't have any tax to pay on this through your self-assessment. You might be surprised to know that it is possible in some cases to rent your personal workspace in your home to your limited company and then claim that as an expense. If you do decide to rent space in your home to your business, you'll need to declare this rental income on your self-assessment. So it will be subject to further personal taxes after you've deducted your expenses. Now, HMRC's rules are really complex in this area, and they expect any calculation to be fair and reasonable. So you should speak to an accountant before preparing a rental agreement between you and your company. Obviously, we could go on forever, but there are a huge range of other things that you can claim for as expenses, including, but not limited to, advertising spend or lead generation tools, including popular things like Google Ads and Facebook advertising, business bank credit card fees or interests and other financial charges, fees such as business insurance or legal fees, accountancy fees, or even fees for setting up your company. Entertainment expenses, such as a Christmas party or a staff event. Again, there are some strict rules around these that we explain in more detail in our knowledge article. Eye tests, and in some instances the costs of glasses or contact lenses, though only if they are needed just for work. Gifts and trivial benefits from your limited company. Again, there are some strict rules around these. Professional subscriptions such as memberships of a trade body or registrations needed in order for you to trade. Medical insurance, healthcare paid through your limited company, and pension payments made by your limited company, such as to an auto-enrolment workplace pension. As always with HMRC, there are a lot of rules and restrictions around most business expenses, and you do need to be careful that you stick to them. Otherwise, the claim could be disallowed. You also need to be aware that for certain expenses, such as medical insurance or personal vehicle fuel costs, could give rise to a benefit in kind. Now, we've got a knowledge article that explains benefits in kind and the personal and business taxes you may need to pay if your company does offer any of these benefits to you as an employee or director. Our jargon-free limited company expenses business guide contains more on each of these areas, and as we've mentioned, contains up-to-date rates and information that you'd benefit from having to hand. So there we have it. A bit of a marathon, but we hope that simplified limited company expenses for you. Make sure you like and subscribe to Crunch for more helpful advice on running your business, and also to check out our other Take the Leap videos, which help you simplify self-employment.